Everybody looks like we're all together at our TV. We have an audience. We have 3 people here. Oh, man, it's amazing. We should do a guest book. You know, we it's so seldom we have visitors. We should do a guest book. What do you think? Maybe take their pictures. I think it'd be kind of neat. All right, I think we're raring to go here. We'll call this meeting to order. This is North Miami Planning Commission for Tuesday, December 4th, 2012. Start time, we'll call it 7:15 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mr. Seyfried.
Present.
Mr. Ernst.
Present.
Miss Fisamy. Miss.
Ari, I haven't. Is she excused or absent? Did she call?
She cannot come.
She can't come.
Yeah.
We don't know why. Okay. Well. Oh, Charlie, that's for you to sign.
Thank you.
Miss Harwitz.
Excused.
Mr. Each.
Present.
Mr. Castor.
Excused.
Mr. Privatel.
Present.
Miss Schwartzbaum.
She's excused.
And for the record, Commissioner Ramon has officially resigned from this board.
Yes, we now have a vacancy. Jesus was a marvelous planning commissioner for many years. Greatly enjoyed his repartee and comments. He was very insightful. All right. Approval of the minutes of November 6, 2012.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved by Mr. Ernst, seconded by Mr. Privatel. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Madam Secretary. Thank you. Any communications tonight? None? All right. No continued public hearings. So, let's go on to item 5. Public hearings, PC 15-12. An ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending Article 4, Division 4, entitled Special Purpose and Overlay Districts, at Section 4-402, entitled Planned Development District, specifically at subsection B, entitled Development Standards, to include vehicle sales display to the list of permitted uses, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and an effective date. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Tanya Wilson-Sejour with the Community Planning and Development Department. Staff is requesting that the Planning Commission recommends approval of the proposed ordinance to amend Article 4, Section 4-402 of the city's land development regulations, and to add vehicle sales display to the list of permitted uses and forward said changes to the City Council for final consideration. And just to provide some background on the purpose and intent of this text amendment, the applicant, Alida Partners, LLC, is requesting a text amendment to Article 4, Section 4-02, entitled Plan Development, in order to add vehicle sales display as a permitted use in the Plan Development District. The applicant believes the proposed request is necessary to facilitate the future development of the 184 acres Biscayne Landing site, which will include a mix of both residential and non-residential uses, one of which is a proposed 90,000 square feet new luxury car franchise, which is expected to create 400 new jobs. If approved, the city would include a stipulation that restricts vehicle sales display, as further defined in Article 7, only on planned development zone parcels that are greater than 30 acres in size, which would currently only pertain to the Biscayne Landing site. And just to provide a definition for the board of vehicle sales display, Article 7 of the LDR defines it as a business or commercial activity involving the display and or sale of principally new automobiles, small trucks and vans, and other small vehicular or transport mechanisms, and including vehicle service. The sale of previously owned vehicles shall only be permitted as subordinate to the principal use. The use is currently allowed by special exception in the C1 Commercial District and M1 Industrial Districts. Currently, there are 5 PD zone properties in North Miami, 4 of which are completely built out, and Biscayne Landing is the only property, PD zone property remaining that is not completely built out. Section 3-1004 of the LDR provides criteria for text amendments to the LDR. And based on our analysis, staff believes that this text amendment satisfies the criteria in that provision, and we're recommending approval of the request at this time. If the board has any questions, the applicant is here to respond to any inquiries at this time.
I just have a quick question to staff,
Sure.
if I may, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
you may.
Again, this would not relate to, if any of the other 4 planned development units wanted to, let's say, in theory, do the same thing, they would have to go through the same process that this particular applicant would be related to this parcel, correct?
Actually, you'll notice that there's a caveat that we've included in the ordinance that this text amendment only pertains to those properties that are greater than 30 acres in size.
Greater than 30 acres.
Based on our analysis, none of the other PD zone sites are greater than 30 acres in size, with the exception of Biscayne Landing.
Okay.
So technically, even if you approve it tonight, only Biscayne Landing could benefit from this text amendment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much on that
Not a problem.
clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ernst. At this time, we'll open the public hearing, and if gentlemen would care to come up, tell us who you are and your relationship to the project.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. State your name and address.
My name's Herbert Tillman. Address is 15045 Biscayne Boulevard. That's my office address. I am the executive officer for Olita Partners, directly responsible for the Biscayne Landing project. We've asked for this text amendment because we noted that there seemed to be some interest from auto dealers for new cars and the higher end new cars, luxury cars, to want to come to a site that is on Biscayne Boulevard. We've had some very preliminary discussions with some of these auto dealers, and before we went too far with them, we wanted to approach the commission for the text amendment change. I brought my head of design here, Randy Foltz. He can answer any questions related to the design of the project, understanding that, again, before we move too far with our master plan, which is our next step in the process, we wanted to get the approval to have the new car dealers on the site. I also brought my project manager, Darrell Lee. He could answer any questions related to any of the building sizes and that sort of thing. I can also respond to any of that.
Well, at this point, it is preliminary since you have no dealerships under contract, and it's all effectively speculation at this stage in the game. There is no site plan to review. There's no fancy picture to look at, so I don't think that part is going to be necessary. Do you have anything further that you'd like to add to this?
No, other than I'd like to see this approved so we can move to the master planning step following this. And thank you for your consideration on this evening.
All right. Do any members of the commission have a question for the gentleman? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Prebitel.
If you're saying that it's along the Biscayne corridor, then I'm guessing that you probably mean either the southeast or northeast, if that's part of the Biscayne Landing project. It would be one of those corners at 151st Street and Biscayne Boulevard.
It could be, and we've had some discussions related to that, and the dealers that we've spoken to would, of course, prefer that area, but they would also like a location inside the Biscayne Landing site. We've also considered there's a residential product sitting to the very northeast corner of the project, and we wanted to kind of, lay away from that. So, but once we receive the approval, then we'll approach them and have more specific discussions, and understanding also that values of property being what it is, that along the Biscayne corridor is going to carry the highest value, and then as you move further and deeper into the site, it's going to carry less value per acre, and they may be looking for more of their economic product might not allow them to buy the higher priced end of it for lease. So,
The Biscayne Landing site is really quite enormous compared to anything else in our community. And there's this great opportunity to develop within, which you'll be going ahead with. When one goes around Florida and much of the country, when you go to a planned community development, not necessarily a PUD, but when you see planned areas of development, housing and such, usually, almost without exception here in South Florida, there is some sort of celebration of the entry, which is usually the lush green landscape. They've brought in or moved around their earth to create berms and such. It's really somewhat inviting, and it sort of sets the tone for the rest of the project. I should have spoken up a long time ago. I've tried interjecting it into our hearings on another occasion. I guess it wasn't quite the time. But quite frankly, our city, which is short of parks, really should not have had the particular southeast and northeast portion of that land relinquished to anyone. It really should have been a public park going in, 300, 400, 500 feet in. It's one of the few, matter of fact, that southeast corner is probably one of the nicest pieces of landscape that we have, anywhere up and down for a few miles, aside from the still natural landscape that we have. And what a shame it would be, to pave it over as we've paved over so much of the city. Is that really in the benefit to the other 130 acres or however many acres there are to pave over, to have a car dealership, to enter in your property, which should be something that you'd really be proud of, and that you'd want to welcome people and invite them in? There's something interesting and exciting or comforting, at least, instead of going through a car dealership.
well, our master planners have expressed the same concern, and we are keeping our ears close to them, because they're the one that has to make this product work. There's a huge opportunity for that grand entry at 143rd Street, that strip coming into the project. I don't know if you're familiar with the site, but that strip coming in is at least 200 feet wide and carries for about 700 to 800 lineal feet coming into the site, and they're really looking hard at how they're going to make that attractive with features on either side of the road, with maybe a winding road and some changes in elevation to really make that the drawing point, bringing the public into the site. We're going to continue it from there through the site, about halfway going from west to east, and then turn it toward the north and connect with the existing Royal Oaks Lane that you're probably familiar with coming in that site. And then finally, we're going to beautify that entry coming from the north end at Royal Oaks Lane, that is just a little east of Biscayne Boulevard, right on 151st Street, and we're going to use that as another entry feature to pretty much carry the same program that you're talking about.
Because that 151st Street access is really also the access to an elementary school, high school, and a major extension of a university, and it would be a shame to have that really commercialized to such a degree. It may be too late that the city's sort of handed over that, but myself, I would really like to, as a developer, to see if that could be made as inviting and as, even if it was small, some sort of park feature or something landscape that is a little bit more welcoming than more asphalt. Which unfortunately our city, we've just allowed way too much asphalt and sprawl at the expense of quality development.
That property is quite deep. It's probably 5,000 lineal feet from the entry at 143rd Street to the easternmost wetlands. So you have to have some way to get the public into there to enjoy the retail development, to enjoy the other parks that by the terms in the lease we have to provide, to also to enjoy some of the other residents in there, to visit the hotel and all of the other product that we're going to put throughout that site. So we intend to make a major corridor coming in through the site and tying back into 151st Street. And your point was well made on 151st Street. Yes, that street has been overly burdened by the county and by the increased attendance of Florida International Universities. We currently have our traffic planners looking at that intersection real hard. We intend to work with Department of Transportation to improve that to a level that'll not only handle the initial flow that we put on it, but to handle what is currently a level of service that is below D and could be, by some intents and purposes, translated into a level of service that's below E. So we're looking at that real hard. We do recognize, because we do go in and out there to our offices every day, at least 2 or 3 times a day, that intersection needs some help.
There's just it would be great if some amount of greenery could be left at 101st, 51st Street as a gateway, even if you put something prominent sort of right behind it, set back where it would still be seen, but to preserve that a little bit for traffic concerns, for beautification of the area, for establishing a gateway.
Right.
And I mean, I would think that a little bit of greenery on Biscayne Boulevard has more value than some areas tucked away that are inaccessible to the public. You know, it may have a value of 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 or more than that by having even like in some cities they call it a vest pocket park, but having some sort of greenery there would be really welcomed by the city, I think.
Well, the point is well taken. We've certainly given up control of
Yeah.
Biscayne Boulevard to pavement everywhere we look. We would hope the developer would save a few trees out there somewhere. All right, is there anything further? No? All right, Mr. Each, you had some questions or comments?
I see you have a 90,000 square foot luxury vehicle facility.
Yeah, and that is just purely a guess right now. We don't know. That's our target goal, 90,000 square foot. That's what we think and our master planners think would make the concept work.
You know, I've heard rumors where the dealer, I think it was Prestige Motors across the street there on Biscayne Boulevard, was interested in the site. You're looking at, if you're building something like this, you're looking at something like the Lexus dealership on 142nd?
Very similar.
In that similar vein?
Yeah, all of the dealers, all the manufacturers are asking the dealers to go to what they call a terminal facility. It's basically a stacked product where you have your showrooms and your other amenities down on the first 2 levels, and then you use the upper levels for control of your product. It offers them a couple of advantages. Number one, they can control where the customers actually walk through their facility instead of just leaving them to randomly wander around a field of cars on level surface. So it allows that control. It also allows them to show the cars in inclement weather because it provides the roof or the coverage that they can take customers out from the showroom and stay within the facility without having to walk out of doors. Walk right up to where their inventory is and show them the precise piece that they are interested in.
That Lexus dealership is a first class.
It is. It is. Audi has a similar product for Prestige across the street. We've spoken to him very
They have a restaurant in there, meeting halls, gym,
Yeah.
get a manicure.
Infinity has a very similar product that they erected in Houston. Very attractive building.
Very high end. Thank you.
Could we make note, though, that Lexus dealership, for better or for worse, is set back a fair distance from the street.
Yes,
You have the railroad tracks separating it, some additional land, and they've heavily landscaped it even in their forecourt, let's say.
They did a good job, though.
So, and the fact that if it is going to be a large edifice, they have their signage on there, and that can be seen from a great distance. It's not where matter of fact, if they were on top of the street, on top of Biscayne Boulevard, it would probably be to their disadvantage because you really wouldn't be able to see it. It would just be another large building there.
You know, I find that to be a very attractive building and very inviting.
It is.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that used to be an old boat factory. The Thunderbird boats used to go.
And it
Dilapidated site.
That's right.
Thank you.
But again, that is probably more successful with the processional sequence that you have there, going to it, getting off the speed and congestion of Biscayne Boulevard and going through a vegetated area might be of help. It might be a chance where, especially if you're really going to cater to high-end luxury cars, and we don't have a guarantee of that right now. It could be any car that we pass this, and it doesn't necessarily be a particular brand, but if you did want to cater to a higher-end brand, I would think that they would find it attractive that there would be more greenery, it would be a more elegant surrounding, or at least passage leading up to the building, as opposed to a block-type warehouse shoved up against Biscayne Boulevard.
Well, all right. We still don't have a site plan, and we can't beat this to death, but I think we've made the point that we are interested in encouraging you to preserve as much greenery in the vicinity of the boulevard as you reasonably can. I have one question offhand. Under purpose and intent in the presentation, you talk about a franchise expected to create 400 new jobs. Would you mind telling me essentially where those jobs would come from?
Yeah, absolutely. They would come from any of the current activities that take place in your auto dealers, everything from the actual beginning of the construction of the building, which will be what I refer to as temporary jobs. It's a job that's created for a person to come on and build the building, and then if they continue to work with that contractor, they then move to another site. It then shifts to use jobs or permanent jobs that are anywhere from the very receptionist that you walk into the front door and who directs you to the person you want to see in the establishment, to salespeople, to accountants, to mechanics, the people that work in the service end. There are tremendous job opportunities there. I've had some preliminary discussions with some of the dealers that I've been talking to about this very same thing because, as you're probably well aware, one of the requirements of our lease is that we produce a certain number of jobs over the first 5 years. And they told me that each one of their dealerships can have as many as up to 100 jobs per dealership. So, you know, the way we came up with the number 400 is we've actually had discussions with 4 or 5 different dealers about coming to the site. So that's what we would hope to produce if
So
this
your
thing is
permanent
successful.
job base would be 60 to 100, and the other 300 would be temporary involved
No,
in
60 to
construction.
100 per dealer. So if we're assuming 3 or 4 dealers come on, then it's that many multiples of 60 to 100. That's where we came up with the 400.
So effectively, you don't envision a single luxury dealership, but in fact, several.
Potentially, right. Many of these dealers have more than one product. Pick one, Warren Henry, for instance. They have Land Rover, they have Jaguar, Infiniti, Volvo, and then they have a Fisker automobile. And well, the guy across the street, Brett David with Prestige, he has more than one. He has Ferrari, Lamborghinis. Audi is the one who's pushing him to build this terminal facility. That's his biggest problem right now, is providing a site to build this terminal facility. He's the #1 Audi dealer in the United States right now in number of sales per month. Some of the other dealers, I mean, even if you go to the nationally recognized brands like Cadillac, they have General Motors, Chevrolet, and some of the other brands. So they
have Raymond down there.
Yeah, and there's several of them, and even the old traditional Ford. They have Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury. Each one of them is like their own brand and carries their own staff.
All right, so
Yeah, it's a whole concept of a supercenter.
all right, so effectively, each label would represent 60 to 100 jobs.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Have you, when the parcel was acquired, or at least, or you were accepted to use the parcel, this was not part of the original game plan, yet it's being presented now. What about the other uses that are permitted as of right, and investigating that? City of North Miami really has no first-class office space. We have no first-class housing, no first-class restaurant. Yet we have plenty of car dealerships and a lot of pavement. And it's just getting worse. And that's not the highest, I don't know if that's the highest and best density usage for that land either. It's really, in terms of jobs, the car dealerships I don't think provide as many jobs per square foot as other uses might have. As a matter of fact, I would suspect that would be kind of low because you have a lot of car space, a lot of empty cars, a lot of paving, a lot of driveways, a lot of spaces. It just doesn't seem to be the best overall.
But that's not for us to determine the highest and best use.
Right. I'm just encouraging looking at something else because we're heading down a path where the city, the biggest identity for North Miami is going to be its pavement and its car dealerships.
Yeah.
And do we really want that? I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last few days, as we haven't over the last so many years. And the biggest identity for North Miami is we have a little patch of land that's right next to us in front of Mocha with a couple palm trees and a little pond, and that's the entire identity of our city. When you think about it,
Yes,
that's it.
That is true, but that's not.
That's
gonna
the
be
face of our
fault
city.
These fellas here.
No.
They have to go on the basis of what individual entrepreneurs feel they can make their biggest buck.
Right.
That is the nature of the business. They're all in it to make a profit.
And I would encourage the
There's no
usage-
guarantee that a car dealer is going to wind up there.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable if that was the case, if it was voted positive, and the city
Yeah.
council could still do that. But I don't know if we want to continue to. Matter of fact, it was just a session or two ago where we had conversation and we were sort of sold that, we're going to have a car dealership at San Souci Boulevard and Biscayne Boulevard, and it's going to be like the last one around because there aren't going to be others. Wow, what a surprise to know that not only is it not just one, but now we could have just a mile or so down the road, we could have 1, 2, 3, 4 new ones. And then we'll get another meeting, and it'll be another situation like this. It's already a
Well,
slippery slope that we're really far
Yes,
behind
but
on.
it beats having all the secondhand car shops that you find along Dixie Highway.
Well, I hope we'd aspire to the greater good and all
Yes,
rather
well,
than slipping further.
We'd all like to
Yeah.
see that, but we don't know. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tillman. We appreciate it. There's no reason for the other gentlemen to take the stand at this time because they actually have nothing concrete to present. And if that's the matter, we'll close the public hearing at this time.
Thank you.
All right, commission discussion, gentlemen. And if there is none, the chair will call for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval.
Mr. Ernst moves for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Each. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
3.
Nay.
All right, 3-1. Thank you. Motion carries. Committee reports none. Old business none. New business none.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
could, under old business, just a question to
Yes.
staff, if I may. A while back, we approved the street closure for Biscayne, or for Johnson and Wales. Is there a progress report on that? I noticed that just driving by there that the construction has begun and that there is total closure of most of that road where I was under. Now, we had approved for some partial opening of some of the access into some of the businesses there. Were any of the plans changed after we had made approval of the plans and sent to?
No, there are no
commission?
change of plans. Their construction
they-
is underway, as you've
Because there was an
observed.
additional street closing that I
And
noticed.
there's actually a cutout that's been proposed in the median that's on 127th Street.
Yes.
So that's the next phase of the project. So they've
Okay,
started
there
the
is-
closure process,
right.
and then
So
they're going to
there-
be having a cutout.
Because
for
I
the
noticed that
median
they had put some.
for a left turn.
Yeah, going into where they have the roundabout near their gymnasium to get to the bank building. That street was closed off with looked like temporary posts that can be removed,
Those are
but
removable
they're still
bollards.
looking like
for
it's a
emergency
permanent
vehicles.
barrier. That was not
Mhm.
part of what we had approved. I know we had approved, and I was vehemently for that, allowing them to have that street section closed off. However, I was quite surprised to see additional areas to the south of that closed off, whether it's temporary or not. I wanted to just to find out if anything was changed in the plan since we had.
The plans haven't changed. As proposed, they had 2 segments of the roadway that were proposed for closure on one end and abandonment on the other. You'll notice the bollards that are there are actually removable bollards. In the event that
Correct.
there's an emergency, they can actually collapse
All right.
and allow access for emergency
Right.
vehicles. And that's what they propose, and that's what's been installed.
Okay.
But the plans haven't changed.
126
at
to
all.
126th Street.
Correct. 127th, actually.
So if you wanted to go to the bank,
126 to 127th on 17th Avenue.
Correct.
Yeah, 17th Avenue was crossed.
to be honest with you, I was unaware of that portion of it being.
What's the estimated timetable on construction? Do we know?
Based on communications with the architect for the project, it's before January for completion, for final completion.
Oh, so
and
they'll
adding
work-
all the landscaping.
They expect to wrap this
Like
up in
within
the
the
next
next 3
couple of
weeks.
weeks.
Mhm.
Really?
Very good.
If I may, the Publix shopping center now is going to be as I understand, they're going to start working on that, and then there's going to be a new Publix put in. That's going to be to the south side of the shopping center where the gym is. And there is a street, a proposed street to go in through the shopping center that matches up with the parking garage
For
of
Johnson
Johnson
Wales.
Wales, so they
Correct.
can loop around.
Right.
And also, they are going to put that cut through on 127th Street into the shopping
For that left
center.
turn lane. Yeah,
So
but they
I-
haven't
so that-
filed a formal application,
Yeah.
so.
And they already
Right.
started, if I'm not
Off-site for
mistaken, they
Johnson.
started demolishing the interior of the abandoned mental institution, which was part of the Miami General.
Mhm.
Is that getting torn down, by the way?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's supposed to start.
There's a
in
demolition
Miami.
is proposed.
Okay, thank you for the update. Thank you,
No
Mr.
problem.
All
Chairman.
right, very good. Yes, thank you. All right, our next meeting is set for.
Kevin, may I,
Mr. Chair, we
I
did
got
want to
one question,
discuss.
if I can, on the new business. Could staff, is it possible to direct staff to research parking garages? And the ones that are already established and the ones that are going to be in the future. I don't know what our what our regulations call for it now, but like, I'll give you an example. The one on 123rd Street, where LA Fitness is.
Mhm.
The illumination that comes out of that is horrible. I mean, isn't there a way that we
Causeway
can
Square
screen?
is what you're referring to?
Yeah, well, I see it. I run there every day, and you know, sometimes I get started in the morning, and I'm out there. It's dark, and you have this glare that comes through. And isn't there a way that I know on the beach they have some beautiful parking garages that go 4 or 5 stories, and the illumination doesn't intrude. And it doesn't disfigure the residential area. And unfortunately, what's happening right now with that parking garage and several of them in the city, it just takes away the whole ambiance of the neighborhood, especially at night. Here you are looking at this glare. And it's, isn't there a way that it could be shielded? And if so, could you do some research on that and let us know? And maybe we can put that in the land use regulations, and maybe say 5 years down the line, like we did with paving driveways, and make the property owners shield that area where you're preserving your residential area. I mean, it's horrible. You're looking at that darn thing, and Jesus, I see it. I have a parking garage behind me, and it's, I'd like to see something done with that where you're actually shielding the glare from the residential area. So if you could, can
Certainly,
you
we
direct
could
staff?
speak with our planning director and convey your sentiment about doing maybe a text amendment in the future regarding landscaping, because this is an existing development. There's nothing we could do to actually require that
Why couldn't we do
property to add landscaping. There's no application
Well,
before,
but
so
I
we
mean,
could
why
encourage them, but we
could
don't
we
have
not,
anything
like-
that could require them at this point if they're meeting code.
Okay.
And they've met code, which is why
On
they got
Harding Avenue,
permit
there's a
approval.
parking garage, Publix parking garage. It's beautiful. Okay, why cannot we not pass an ordinance and say within 4 years or 5 years, we done this with our driveways and making these people pay for our driveways? Why can we not do this?
And
Can
we
we not
could if
research
that's
it
your
and let us-
recommendation, but I'm saying for the existing development, we can't require them for,
Why can't
for the built
we?
environment. For the causeway, you're suggesting that we tell them to add landscaping. I'm saying it's an
No,
already
what I'm saying, there
constructed
should be
project.
some kind of a shield or something to stop that harshness. I don't mind the building being there, but when you're looking at this parking garage and you're living in a residential area and you see the cars driving in and you see the illumination coming at you, it's horrible. And other cities have done this. Why can't we do it? And yes, Counselor, can we make this retroactive? I thought we could. We could go back in time.
Well,
Give them
I
4
would
years
like
or 5 years.
to I'd like the opportunity to research the matter, because for all I know, they could be in violation right now of the existing code. I don't know. It's something that we would have to look into.
No, I'm saying
And
shield it. Put screens up.
A diffuser.
provide a remedial
Yeah,
shield
sure.
to eliminate some of the
And I
glare.
mean, and-
That's something we can look into.
Even if it's
for
done in good
possi-
faith on the part of the business would be nice.
I mean, really,
mention it
it's
to
a
next
horrible
week.
thing to see. I feel sorry for some of these homeowners, and you're looking at this glare, and this isn't rocket science. I mean, I've seen this in other cities, and one of the things that used to irk me, and I don't mean to be redundant here, but a lot of the apartment buildings in the city didn't bother paving their driveways. So we have that in the land use right now, that you had, I think when we passed this about 3 years ago, that you had 7 years to pave your driveway. We made it mandatory. Hey, you pave it. End the story. And I think we should do something like this with our parking garages. Make sure that they're shielded, make sure that they're beautiful. It should be a thing of beauty, not of
If this,
harshness.
if
Anyway,
this,
that's what I
So we'll
think.
convey that to the planning director, certainly,
Okay, thank-
Commissioner
if-
East, to see what could be done.
if this is
If
a concern, did we not just minutes ago permit much more of the same?
No.
A large scale
No.
parking lot with
No, we
park.
did not.
There's no control
we did
over the
not.
lighting.
No,
In-
we
in a
discussed-
residential
all
area.
we discussed was signage permission. If we want to
Sign-
discuss this, we've got to address that when it's brought to our
There is-
He's
council.
talking about lighting.
Well, there is, yes, but
From
there are differences.
multi-level parking.
Right, and some of the multi-level, like for example,
Multi-
Lexus garage is not anywhere near as obnoxious for lighting.
No, it's not.
Lexus is much more subdued and appropriate to actually go residential area, and it's in the middle of the
And
commercial
enhanced.
zone. Yeah, one of the problems I've noticed, and I will just put this comment on the record since you've gone there, Mr. Reach, is that we don't seem to have the same forethought and standards for parking garages that South Beach has got. They build very nice, attractive, beautiful garages. They're landscaped, they're screened, they're decorative. They're an asset to their neighborhoods. And we have just not considered that kind of code management for parking garages. And I think the point Mr. Reach makes is well taken. Our codes rather seem to be silent when it comes to the aesthetics of parking garages. Now, if we go 10 years, 15 years down the road, we're going to see more parking garages around the city. And we need to have a better aesthetic standard for screening and shielding of the garages. I know last time we had this discussion some years ago at this commission, it was the position of the city representatives at that time that those standards would not be cost effective, and the developers would not want to build garages because they didn't want to pay the added cost of screening and landscaping and blah blah blah. So we sort of rolled over and played dead. Come today, we seem to be once again looking at this kind of an issue, and the garages that we build in this city don't compare to the garages you find on Miami Beach. We need to do a better job. But I realize we can't fix that tonight, but I'd like to put that on the record and support
Can we
Mr.
make
Reach.
that in the form of a motion?
Um,
Requesting the planning director or the planning
Is
department?
the commission authorized to do that? I thought there was an ordinance that prohibited us from doing that.
I would recommend that we first be given the opportunity to find out what's in the books first.
We
Bring-
could
and
do
then-
it as a request.
Yes,
Make
we'd
a
like
motion that we
and then-
request staff look into
current standards for
current
parking
standards
garages.
for parking garages as applied to lighting and aesthetic
Yeah.
I
value.
think at that point, this commission can then more appropriately discuss the deficiencies in such codes, if at all, if
Yeah,
there
all
are
right.
any.
Okay.
Well, let's put that down for staff report
sound good, Bill?
in 60 days.
And we
Okay?
take that approach and get into it.
Set that for
through
the
that
meeting in
avenue.
February.
It's a start. It's a
It
small
gives-
step in the right direction. Small,
It's a small step,
step.
yes, but it's a step
But
in the
it
right
gives us
direction.
that-
Yeah, we have so many warehouses and misutilized spaces and,
No, you're
and
absolutely
awkward
right.
geometries and lack of maintenance and discouragement of density. It just goes on and unfortunately, we're like many other communities in the entire country. Not one of the stellar communities that have great, that have aspired to greatness. We're part of the mediocrity.
yeah.
I wish we could get off that track as soon as possible.
You know,
And- and,
when I was up in Illinois, in Bolingbrook, Illinois, we had a place called Remington Boulevard. And it was an industrial area, a warehouse. It was absolutely gorgeous with the parks and the ponds. And it was just so attractive. And you really wanted to go there. And I agree with you. When you have the proper landscaping and, it just makes a difference. It really does. And I just see a problem with this. I see it throughout the city, and parking garages, I mean, if my point is, if Miami Beach can do it, why in the heck can't we do it?
Yes, and it seems
As
to be
simple as that.
we
No ifs,
can
ands,
and they
or buts.
can.
Let's not kick the can down the road.
There's no reason why you can't. I propose that, we come back to you and provide you with a status of what we do have currently. Perhaps analyze that, and then you can propose some amendments to,
Sure.
Okay.
And
Sure.
get
Sounds
some of
good.
our
Thank you.
existing garages built.
And as long as we're sort of concluding this conversation, it would be wonderful if the developers at Biscayne Landing really sought out the best they can in terms of design and aesthetics for their property, which would certainly behoove the rest of North Miami. And if there's anything that could be done where we can help facilitate that, whatever it is. I mean, I would love to see if you come up with a better project, a better design, you're solving something better, then we could flex more on some of the rules and regulations that are there, because they're really not all 100% beneficial to our community. I've seen it time and time again, some of our things. It's done with good intention up front, but it doesn't always work when it gets implemented. It would be great if we had a symposium, a planning symposium a few weeks ago, and unfortunately very few people attended, but we had this consulting firm and such, did a lot of effort into it, and there were some ideas that came about. It's hard to change our city overnight, but Biscayne Landing is sort of almost a clean slate, and what a great opportunity it would be to be a focal point for the whole Miami-Dade or South Florida. It could be really a great opportunity if the people have the right vision. And I know doesn't always match perfectly with the financials, but maybe get a step or two in the right direction may snowball into something a bigger and better return for the project
Well, it
overall.
would be nice if we saw some buildings that at some point would actually win an architectural award. We do seem to do a wonderful job of building mediocre boxes in every little street corner we can come up with.
Yeah.
Does nothing really for the future image of the community.
Well, I
Certainly,
think that's a part of the entire city's commitment must be to throw that gauntlet down to developers when they come in. That's
yeah,
what
and we don't do a good
we-
job of that.
we
Well,
need to be responsible.
And part of that session was to have more commanding, more dynamic geometries and such that make
yes.
our environment a little bit more
Yeah.
interesting.
It's unfortunate that MoCA, as good as it's done with Art Basel, has had zero impact on architects down here. All right, our next meeting is set for...
Mr. Chair, we need to point out that your next meeting date is on New Year's Day. So we are asking the board to propose a special meeting date
An election
that
day.
works within
Well.
the schedule, all of your
Do we know if
schedules.
there's anything planned in January, or should we just go with the February meeting?
Our illustrious board secretary has gone ahead and provided a calendar, so at least we'll see when the council chamber is available. So our first proposed date would be January 10th.
It's not on a Tuesday, correct?
That's a Thursday night. All other nights prior to that, the council chambers are being used, so it's not available for the meeting.
Doesn't bother me.
Other than that, it would be January 16th as an alternate date.
How is it that the January meeting could be December 31st to begin with? Did I hear that right?
No. it's
Tuesday the
January.
1st, New Year's Day.
January.
New Year's Day is the 1st, yeah.
Now, as chairperson,
New Year's
I
Day.
could go with the 10th if there's really anything.
We would just need a
that's-
quorum,
that's
so.
going to come
I
up
have
with
a
us.
problem.
All right, we got two
So the
out of 4 at
10th,
least.
okay, we've got a
Do not
3.
know. Do
Awesome.
not know at this point.
All right, looks like we might get a quorum,
So
but
close.
realistically, February would be fine with me unless something really is happening where they got to get something rolling. Somehow, I don't think Biscayne Landings is going to be here with a new blueprint and a new design in 6 weeks. I don't think we have to worry about that part of it.
Well, and this portion still has to have 2 subsequent readings before city council. So
So, yeah, that's not going
it's not going to happen that quick.
it's not going to happen that fast. So
So is it the recommendation of the chair then that we
we
move
could accept
move on
the
to the
10th,
February
but,
meeting?
But I wouldn't carve it in stone. If being that this is Christmas, the end of the year, I don't see any developer beating a path to the planning department with a must-have hearing in January at that point. And the chair could just as easily take a pass on January and see what rolls into February. But in the alternative, you can play with the 10th. You can book it
Okay.
with the city clerk, and we'll see if anything comes up.
Okay, we've had 2 applicants that have expressed interest to go forward on the January meeting. No official submittals, but just
Right, they're
strong interest galloping out the gate. Can we have a January
Galloping
meeting?
out the gate, are
yes,
they now?
So, yes.
Oh.
So
2.
I would add that.
And
So-
100
And dust moving. So I would add
this
that.
could be a trend.
The 10th. So
Well,
the 10th is a tentative date. We could have our board secretary poll the remaining members that are not present to
Yes,
find out
because
if
we
it
need a
would be
quorum no
feasible
matter
for
what we
them.
do. Well, 3 of us at least can easily commit. Mr. Ernst is iffy at
We'll
the
check
moment.
his calendar. Okay.
Do we know when the boat show is, by the way?
February 14th.
Wow.
To the 18th.
14 to the 18th. So we know you're booked then, but you should be fine for these other dates. Okay, well, that's good.
Okay.
All right, the 10th Thursday will work for a special meeting if the applicants desperately need our attention. Otherwise, 3 weeks down the road and we're into February.
Okay.
All right,
So noted.
if there's no other business to come before the board, we are adjourned.
Alrighty.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm sorry we didn't have a photographer here to record this momentous event. One of these days, I'll get one of those smart